We are on lunch break right now, and I wanted to do an update while I had some time about why I'm selling my Insta360 Go 2. I'm going to compare it to some cameras that I've used and still use and prefer in my outdoor adventures, mountain biking, cycling, and anything in between. And I'll let you know exactly why I'm deciding to let go of this little tiny beam camera that they call the Insta360 Go 2. If you want to learn more about it, then just keep on watching. So why should you take my opinion over others? Well, I'm unbiased and I have no affiliation with Insta360 Go 2. As you can see right next to me, I have my gravel bike. I do all sorts of cycling, adventures, mountain biking, outdoor exploring, and much more where I test action cameras in an unbiased way. They're actually something that I use to produce videos for my hobby, for my creativity, and for my overall happiness. I have no affiliation or no sponsorship involved in any of these videos. They're just based on what makes me happy and what I like to share and what I think is useful and informative to share with all the viewers out there that find my channel. So that's why you should take my opinion. And now let's get into the 5 reasons. They're going to be really quick and I'm going to keep it short and sweet. So I have the list on my phone here and I'm just going to list them off really quickly up front so you could have all 5 of them for your information before I get into a brief description of why I chose these things. Number 1 is usability. Number 2 is image quality. Number 3 is weatherproofing. Number 4 is size. And number 5 is overheating. Let's jump into the speed round with the first on the list being usability. I'm used to a GoPro and having that red button on top that you just click. You're collecting those shots that you need. You have all the settings at your fingertips and pretty easy to understand right out of the box. The same can't be said for the Insta360 Go 2. Out of the box is pretty confusing. You have a small LED screen that has just certain settings on it. And then whenever you record, you have to keep the case open. You have to hold it a little bit awkwardly. If you pull the camera out of the case, then whenever you go ahead and shut the case, it's hard to understand exactly what settings you're using. On top of that, it's a little bit fiddly to just navigate. In general, the usability is just really difficult. And then once you get onto your computer, there's another step in the process. You can't just put the files into the timeline that you're working in if you're using that pro mode. Again, that's just in pro mode. You can use the standard clips from the Insta360 Go 2 and put them into your timeline. But if you want to use the pro mode and have that horizon leveling aspect of the camera, then you do have to use the pro mode. So it's a little bit hard with the usability aspect. Number 2 on the list is image quality. This thing only shoots in 1440p, and in pro mode you get that full circle, which you can reframe. But generally on a bigger screen, the image quality doesn't hold up. Now, if you're shooting for Instagram, social media, TikTok, things like that, it's decent and can get by. It looks a lot better on a smaller screen than whenever you open it up on, say, a big TV screen or even a laptop. So the image quality just didn't hold up for my liking. I prefer the 5K or 4K from the GoPro. And if you're dedicated to image quality, then this camera isn't going to do it for you. There's no options to change the contrast or sharpness either, which I really didn't like. Number 3 on the list is weatherproofing. And while this camera is actually weatherproof and waterproof, that's just the camera itself. The actual case that it comes in is not weatherproof or waterproof. And that makes things really complicated because if you're just gonna go swimming with this little bean-sized camera, it's gonna get lost, things are gonna happen to it, and you might not come back with the camera. So you really don't wanna use that small little camera in the water, especially if it's an action sport. And on top of that, the battery life is really bad on just the small camera itself, especially if you're shooting long form clips. So this thing is waterproof to a certain extent if you're just using the small camera. But then once you involve the case, you're probably not going to find yourself in a position where you want to put a wet camera into a case, not to mention like sand, dirt, and grit that's going into the case. That's the reason why I really didn't like this system, because whenever I'm out on the trail, I want to be able to drop the camera in dirt or water, if not by necessity, but by accident, and be okay with the camera and know it's going to survive. I was really reluctant to use this Insta360 Go 2 anywhere out in the nature because I didn't want to get the case dirty or mess up the actual contact points for the charging system, because that's another issue that I'll talk about at the end of the list. Number 4 on the list is size, and although it is a double-edged sword, it's still an issue for my personal use cases because I like to have usable things, and a fiddly little camera out on the trail is kind of hard to use. Whenever you're doing adventure or something, you kind of want a camera that's big enough to control but also small enough to conceal. And I feel like the Insta360 Go 2 is a very specialty camera that you probably wouldn't want to use in action sports scenario because of the size and because of the battery life on just the small camera portion of the Insta360 Go 2 package. It's just, it's a little bit too small in my opinion, and although it is great for certain things, like I might even pick one up again down the road because I have another project that involves really small items that I need like a probe lens for. So if you do need a smaller camera for that sort of thing, it's great. But if you're looking for overall usability and battery life, it's kind of hit or miss with it, and the size of the camera itself is a little bit too fiddly. So for me, it's a no-go, and that's another reason why I sold it. And finally, one of the most important issues here is the overheating aspect of this camera. It's so small that the battery inside of it there's not much heat dissipation for that battery to actually be able to dissipate the heat. So whenever you have it on the magnetic pendant or on your helmet, you can actually feel the heat coming off of it on just a normal day outside, like a 80-degree day. This thing was very hot to the point where I was actually concerned, and not for my skin to be burning, but it was hot to the touch. I'd be more concerned about the components inside, like the chipset. I don't know what that heat level could be doing to the electronics inside of this camera, but it can't be good, and it's not very comfortable to have right on your chest or near your head. So the overheating aspect really kind of concerned me, and it's another reason why I sold it. So there you go. There are 5 reasons why I sold the Insta360 Go 2. Hope that they might have helped you out if you're thinking about buying the camera. Now, there are a lot of positives with this camera, obviously the size being probably the number 1 reason why you'd want it. And I just couldn't make the compromise for that size to usability. And those are pretty much the reasons all kind of mashed together into the main reason why I sold the camera. So if you have any questions about why I got rid of it, how I liked the experience while I had it, just pop them down in the comments down below. And other than that, don't forget to go out there and create your own adventure however you can. Spread some positivity. I'll see you on the next one.